Love, 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 and welcome back to As Lamb's Way. I'm your good friend Mac, and remember, I'm not going to ask you to like, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I am going to ask you to share with a friend, to share with a friend. You know I got to get out here on these YouTube streams, downloading to the Matrix. Now listen, it is with heartfelt regret that we gotta jump into this really heartbreaking and heart-wrenching story. The death of Micheal K Williams. He died at age 54. He was a superstar actor. I mean, he was just in Lovecraft Country, which was nominated for 19 Emmys, if I'm not mistaken. Those of you who knew him a long time ago, he was Chalky from Boardwalk Empire. Of course, our whole culture knows him as Omar from The Wire. I mean, it's unmistakable that his acting legend and prowess and his pedigree is unmatched and unsurpassed. He is another one at the young age of 54, because 54 is young, make no mistake about it, that was taken from us by drugs. You know, he had a drug overdose allegedly. There have been reports of cocaine. Allegedly, there have been reports of fentanyl. Some people have taken the opportunity to really show him the dignity and respect that he deserves, and other people have taken the opportunity to continuously reveal who they are and absolutely take shots at him. And I don't have to tell you who that is. You already know. Now, I don't just want to talk about his life and his death, but everything that made him special and not special at the same time. He was a young black man born in the slums. He pulled himself up by his bootstraps, as they always say, and worked his way up acting in his acting career, and eventually became a multimillionaire. He does have one son, but he was a victim of drugs. And what's unfortunate is for the last 3 decades, we haven't called black men and women who do drugs victims. We've called them criminals. And it wasn't to the opioid crisis that we, begin to see, Caucasians as victims. And then by proxy, we begin to see blacks and other people of color as victims and instead of criminals. It was okay for middle-aged white women to pop pills in their homes and drink wine 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but God forbid a crackhead did crack. They were a straight criminal. Well, I want to jump into a few things. First, I want to break down just a little bit of difference between crack and cocaine and fentanyl, where they come from, why they big. We know it's a historical fact that the CIA was flooding the streets with it in the 80s. We know that. There's no way to argue that point. That is something that they're not going to teach in the history books, but we know that is a fact. That's what the CIA did, and they made a lot of money on the opium trades. Now, if we see fentanyl boom in the last 10 years, right? It's a really addictive painkiller drug. That's what it is. But fentanyl is a narcotic. It's a controlled substance, high risk of addiction. 3 of the big brands are Duragesic, Subsys, and Abstral. I've never heard of Ionsys, but Abstral, I've definitely seen that around, allegedly. You definitely need a prescription. Not really. You can definitely get it if you know where to look. It's a synthetic, basically breakdown of a poppy seed. Everybody knows what a poppy seed. If you ever seen Seinfeld, there was an episode about the poppy seed, and basically that is where the fentanyl comes from. So basically what they do is they synthesize it, cut it down, they alter it, and it becomes an opioid drug that tricks the brain into having a euphoric sensation, and then the brain believes that there is no pain. So it induces that, and when you take fentanyl, it just takes it to the next level. The other big one, of course, you already know, is cocaine, that booger sugar. Now listen, years ago, I had the grand opportunity. Photography was just getting big in Philly. New photography was real big, and I wanted to take the opportunity to bless myself. So I became a photographer, and I had some friends who were in the adult entertainment industry, and they wanted me to come do some cinematography for me. And I remember they invited me out to a couple parties, and then from there I made a few more connections, and got in with some local rappers, some local media people, some local producers and managers and stuff. And it would always be real strange how quick the cocaine came out. I mean, we would listen to music for about an hour, and then all of a sudden cocaine would just start falling out of niggas' pockets. I would just be caught up in, where did this much cocaine come from? I mean, listen, I seen a nigga one time take a credit card, allegedly, and flip it between his fingers like a nickel, and then chop that thing up into 3 lines and hit all 3 lines back to back, and then ask me, did I want something? I said, first of all, nigga, no. Second of all, ain't no more left. You killed it all. You offering me shit that ain't there no more. Hey, I had to really wean myself off of these parties, because while I loved them and I enjoyed myself, especially people watching, because it shouldn't be crazy. I mean, niggas will snort cocaine off of anything. I seen niggas snort cocaine off of the edge of a chair, a breast, a thigh, a lady part, right? I seen lady part. That was the most interesting thing I've ever seen in my life. It was like Cirque du Soleil. Where else have I seen them? I've seen them do it off of a remote control, the back of a remote control. I've seen them do it off of a PlayStation. It was a PS2 or PS3. Where else have I seen them do? I've seen them really do some wild shit. I seen a nigga drop it, and it the dust hit the floor, and then he was trying to push it together with his fingertips and still hit it. Just wild stuff. And I'm talking about, these are folks that you know. These are folks that you know, but you really don't know them. And I had the opportunity to see them get caught up with that booger sugar, and it made me look at them and look at the entire industry with the media and local music and all that. Look at that real strange, because I'm trying to figure out how do you niggas lead normal lives on your day to day? What's going on with y'all? Y'all really caught up on this. But that's coke. Most of the music industry is full of cokeheads. That's just the way it go. Coke is everywhere. Coke always going to be everywhere, and your favorite is probably on coke, allegedly. Now, crack is different, but crack is the same. So crack dropped a little bit later, about maybe 5-6 years after cocaine, and it's basically just freebasing it. So basically you're cooking it, it's cheaper, it's hard, it's not powder, it's hard. Make it, for those who not in the know, I'm not going tell you how to add the cornstarch and whip it up and cook it, and I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to tell you how to shoot it up. I don't know anything about that. But what I can tell you is that chemically they're the same drug. That's what they are. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's hard and it's cheap, and it was easy to flood poor people's neighborhoods with it, aka black people. Because whenever you hear people say poor, that's what they talking about, black folks. They just trying to be politically correct. But we'll get to how this is connected to Micheal K. But crack is the same as cocaine. It's just hard, and basically you smoke it and it hits the lungs instead of you snorting it and it going directly up into your nasal cavity. Now this is what crack is. So crack is basically a freebase, like we talked about, and it offers a short, intense high, and there basically is no difference, and people love it because it's cheap. Now, we've had a lot of celebrities die from crack overdose, from cocaine overdose, and what's really, 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 really strange is that all these artists, right, because they're all artists, whether they're a thespian, or a rapper, a singer, a producer, a photographer, or an actual artist, where are they getting this from? We're talking about black multi-millionaires. We're not talking about, the soccer mom. We're not talking about, the mechanic down the street who can fix your car with no tools and his hands are thick like bricks. We're talking about multi-millionaires who are titans of their industry. But just take Whitney, for example, and how she died. And then we can see that it doesn't matter the amount of wealth. It doesn't matter how smart the person is. Once they're a victim of, whatever circumstance leads them to that drug, then they become a slave to that drug. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm going to play you guys some snippets of this interview with a telecommunications engineer. It's extremely high IQ, extremely articulate. At the time, he was a master in his field, making what would be the equivalent to over $100,000 today, probably close to about $150K. And he was the guy who the guy called when they needed the big boss. He did telecommunications for Bell Atlantic. He worked at NASA. He freelanced for multiple companies, and he was addicted. And if you just listen to his story, you'll see how dangerous this thing is and how unfair it was for basically the U.S. to target black people to get free labor via the 13th Amendment. I'm going to put it up here.
Tell me what it was like, that first blast.
It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. It's really, there's not even any words really to describe it. It's a feeling so intense and so pleasurable that I've seen it cause people to spend their last penny. I've seen people spend their rent money, their food money, their everything.
You mean from that first time you were gone?
Yes. That first hit, to me, was so immense and so unlike anything I'd ever had in my life that I just had to try it again.
Had you ever had any involvement with drugs leading up to that?
Well, having lived in California for a few years and having been with the Hollywood set, I had tried cocaine on occasion. And crack is something that will cause you to put cocaine down. Crack is so much more of a high to it, so much more of a rush.
That cocaine.
Most people who start using crack usually stop sniffing cocaine.
You make a big distinction between crack and cocaine, don't you?
So to speak, they're really the same drug, but it's how it's administered. Cocaine being sniffed and entering the blood system through the nasal and mucous membranes of the nose. Crack is smoke inhaled into the lungs, and therefore in 5 to 10 seconds causes an immense rush.
Now listen to what the man used to do.
Wait a minute, tell me what happened with this job.
Well, I reported to work on Monday. On Tuesday, I made a mistake of stopping at the crack house.
He's a smart guy.
So I was absent Tuesday. I was absent Wednesday. I figured, well, I better shape up or I won't be here much longer. So Thursday and Friday, I went to work. The following Monday, after a short job I had to do, I said, well, I'll stop for a minute and I'll get one and I'll go back to work. I didn't get back to work till Wednesday. So, of course, by Wednesday, it's... and Friday was my last day.
This is the $35,000 a year job?
Yes.
With an expense account?
Yes.
Car?
Yes.
And you just blew it?
Just like that.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I have a portable skill which I could go out tomorrow and get another job if I wanted to. I feel bad about it. Well, I'm into electronics and telecommunications, and I've been in the telecommunications industry about 9 years now.
I'll leave a link so you guys can watch the whole interview. It's about 10 minutes long, but this is a man with a degree. This is a man who had a fantastic job with an expense account, with a car, and he threw it away in 3 days. This is a man who could go out and get another high value, high paying job instantaneously almost, and he can't stay away from crack. And he was introduced via the booger sugar. And while it's important, to the story with Micheal K, is that with Micheal K, we don't know for sure as of right now what took his life. But we do know that a celebrity of his caliber has to have people around it. This is what we learned from the R. Kelly case. We learned from the R. Kelly case that R. Kelly couldn't read. but he had people around him helping him sign checks, open up accounts, fake birth certificates, get drugs, rent out apartments, fake marriage licenses. He had a team around him, and if you think for a second Micheal K didn't have a team around him, you're crazy. And let me tell you something, that team knew the demons that was on his back and what he was battling, and I hope that whole team goes to jail, because we don't have him because somebody couldn't be his friend enough to make sure that he got the help. Now, what people had found out, if he had to check into a rehab, so what? Who cares? The man would have been alive. And that's what we got to get past. Like, we so caught up in the social media and what things to look by, and a firestorm and bad publicity. This man is dead. And so now, their child doesn't have a father. And it's devastating to know that this could have been prevented, because when we saw him acting, the man was alive and vibrant. And so I don't believe that he was this old, decrepit man. I believe that he was a victim of these drugs. And we don't know which one of the big three that he was caught up in. We have no idea as of yet. But I know that it was most likely one of these big three. And the problem with these big three is simply that they're running rampant. They're going unchecked, and only the crack is being targeted. Well, now they've changed some of the laws, but for 3 decades, for 30 years, it was disproportionately, up against black people. It was basically the U.S. just throwing black people in jail so they could get free labor. Let me show you this article. I believe it's from the UCLA. And so this article says, crack in the system for 20 years of the unjust federal crack cocaine law, a comprehensive examination of 100-to-1 crack versus powder cocaine sentencing disparity, under which distribution of just 5 grams of crack carries a minimum of 5-year federal prison sentence, while distribution of 5 grams of powder cocaine carries the same 5-year mandatory minimum sentence. So you can have 5 grams, or you could have 500 grams, and they're gonna give you the same time. You know why? Which group of people do you want the free labor out of? And so those who are wealthier, they do the more social drug. They call them weekend warriors. That's how they usually start. They start messing with the coke, and a lot of them don't downgrade the crack if they have the money to get the good coke, right? They don't downgrade it. They don't want to chase the high because they know it'll mess up their craft. And then some of them jump from coke to fentanyl. And I'm gonna put up a list of all of the artists that we've lost since 2009 to alcohol or drug abuse. And I put alcohol in there simply because there's a lot of times, alcohol for the most part is considered a downer, and people use it for escapism. And a lot of times when alcohol isn't enough, they'll start to mix the alcohol with different drugs to find which one will provide the right euphoria. And sometimes that causes an adverse reaction and people's heart stops. Or people will fall in there, hurt themselves, a host of different things. And it's really, really devastating. And if you just look at these lists, some names you might know, some names you might not, but these were all celebrities in their own right that were taken from us because of this sickness. Because now, all of America is seeing it for what it was, when years ago, and it was just black people out in the open, it's just straight criminals. But just take a look at this list. So on this list, we see a lot of different names. Tom Petty, we see Mac Miller, that's a huge one. We see Juice WRLD, that was big in our community. Prince, one of the biggest stars to ever walk the face of the earth in the last, century. Jose Fernandez, Joan Rivers. I mean, she's an icon to, other communities. Amy Winehouse. I loved her music personally. I thought she made, the best depressing music that you could ever come across. Of course, the situation with Michael Jackson is absolutely unforgettable. His was a propofol that was administered by a doctor, and sadly, he lost his life. But getting back to Michael K, what I want you guys to really understand is that wealth has not separated the drug gap. It has just allowed more people with access to get access to quote unquote better drugs. And for those of you who have family members who are suffering from drug addiction, I'm going to make sure I have the hotline out right here. And I want you guys to do everything in your power to get them help, even if they hate you for it at first. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I used to say to a family member of mine that was a drug addict, I said, I'd rather you be here to hate me. I'd rather you be here to hate me. Be mad at me. I don't care. At least you're here. I need you here. It is unfair to continue to say you're of our community and to prey on our community. And for those men and women who do that, I absolutely hope the universe comes down on you as hard as possible, because you're scumbags. Make no mistake about it, you're scumbags. You are. Listen, my friends, these are absolutely my thoughts and my feelings. I am deeply saddened by his passing. I'm hoping that this will be a wake-up call for others who are messing with one of the big three. I'm hoping that we'll continue to make strides when it comes to prison reform as it pertains to drug offenses. And I'm hoping that you can take some of this information and share it with a friend, Remember, I'm your good friend Mac, and this is Aslam's Way. Please stay tuned.